right, let's finish up the neuroanatomy lecture. So we're looking at the brainstem now, which is in the very back of the brain, and the brainstem connects the brain to the spinal cord, and it's the site of involuntary reflexes like respiration and digestion, and also the site of cranial nerves. So it's a group of structures, and there are motor and sensory neurons that travel through the brainstem, allowing for the relay of signals between the brain and the spinal cord. The brainstem coordinates motor control signals sent from the brain to the body, and the brainstem also controls life-supporting autonomic functions of the peripheral nervous system. So this is alertness, arousal, breathing, blood pressure, digestion, heart rate, and other autonomic functions. So there's three parts to it. You can see there's the midbrain here, the pons, and the medulla. That's all we're going to talk about on the brainstem. Okay, so the spinal column, or spinal cord, we've already talked about how these structures are divided along the vertebrae. And there is cerebrospinal fluid, CSF, which cushions neural tissues. It's a clear, colorless fluid that's produced in the choroid plexus of the brain, and it acts as a cushion or a buffer for the brain, for the cortex inside the skull, and it also serves as a vital function in cerebral blood flow. So the CSF occupies the subarachnoid space. So that's the space between the arachnoid and the pia mater and the meninges of the brain, and the ventricular system around the inside of the brain and the spinal cord. Okay, so all of this talk about the brain and where things are and what things do, this is a localization view. And this is an early perspective, and it now seems pretty simplified to say that at this specific point in the brain, this is where something happens, like in the certain lobes of the brain. This view was based on early evidence from brain damaged patients. So it was based on the fact that different types of aphasia, so language disorders, are associated with different parts of the brain, like in Broca's area and Wernicke's area. And so, anyway, strict forms of localization have fallen out of favor because research indicates they're gross oversimplifications. So we're finding out that there's more and more evidence of complex interactions between regions of the brain during performance of various aspects of language production and comprehension. Okay, so we used to think that during most of the 20th century, the general consensus was that the brain remained unchanged or stable after a critical period in childhood development. And so this notion has been debunked by research that shows that the brain can change even in adulthood. So if you have some sort of damage to your brain, the brain still can change and rewire itself to make new connections to work again. So the neurons in the brain have this amazing ability to rewire itself to compensate for injury or new experiences based on changes in the environment. So sometimes we see that if there's damage to one hemisphere of the brain, the undamaged hemisphere will start to take over some of those functions. Much of cognitive and physical rehab, so all of the rehabilitation we do in speech pathology, is based on the principles of neuroplasticity, that with therapy, you can retrain the brain and you can regain new connections in the brain to learn these abilities again. Okay, so the central nervous system is a highly evolved, complex system that organizes everything we experience in the world. And next time we're going to talk about the peripheral nervous system.